We see a nervous guy named Scott in the forest, shaking like crazy while recording a video. He is clearly serious when he says this is not a joke. He explains that he is an American tourist who accidentally came to the Darien forest in Panama with friends. They mistakenly wandered into a part of the jungle where they shouldn't be, and now something strange is following them. Before he can finish asking for help, a terrifying scream echoes through the air, and thus Scott and his friends disappear without a trace. Now, let's go back 2 days to find out what happened. So, Scott and his girlfriend Steph were preparing for the trip with friends. While packing for the flight, they received a video call from Elena, Trevor, and Charlie, who were already in Panama having fun at a beach party, laughing and joking. Scott informed them that he and Steph would arrive at noon since their flight was in 2 hours. After a fun chat, the couple headed to the airport. Upon arriving in Panama, Scott and Steph got into a van sent by the hotel, and the ride felt quite long. As the hotel was far into the jungle, it took longer than they anticipated to get there. But they finally arrived and reunited with their friends that night. The group went to the beach for a party, dancing and drinking. Trevor ended up talking to a local girl named Carmen, and they started flirting. After exchanging a few words, Carmen decided to join the group. Later, a local guy named Julio showed up, and Carmen introduced him to everyone. They continued the party, filled with music, dancing, and laughter, completely unaware of what was to come. That night, while everyone was relaxing, Scott was browsing the internet, looking for nearby places to explore and things to do the next day. While browsing, he found an article about the Darien jungle. The more he read, the stranger things seemed. Apparently, all the tourists who had gone to that jungle had disappeared without a trace. Curious, Scott kept researching and found a video online. In the footage, a group of tourists appeared. As they walked toward the Darien Gap, they suddenly spotted something strange in the distance. As soon as they saw that terrifying figure, panic set in, and they ran away. Little did Scott know that in just 2 days, he would also be recording a video like that. Instead of being scared, he was very excited about the mystery and danger of the jungle. The sight of its untouched beauty completely captivated him, and he could hardly wait to check it out. The next morning, he mentioned this to Julio and talked about the video he had found. Julio listened attentively for a moment, then shook his head. He admitted that there was a stunning waterfall hidden deep in the jungle, but warned Scott that his grandfather had always advised him to stay away from it. According to local legends, there was something about that waterfall, which is why no one ever returns as expected. The townspeople found Julio's warning funny, dismissing it as just a local legend. None of them believed these stories, thinking it was just superstition. Meanwhile, they continued with their activities. Steph told Elena about an emergency app she had installed on her phone. She explained that the app could automatically send videos and photos to YouTube and Facebook in real time. Not only that, but it could also recognize contacts and tag them in the post, alerting them that the user was in danger. It was designed as a safety tool for emergencies. Later that night, the group sat around a campfire, laughing and chatting. The conversation soon turned to the idea of visiting the waterfall deep in the jungle. The more they talked about it, the more excited they became. But when Julio heard their plan, he immediately spoke firmly, warning them not to go. He also told Carmen not to take them there whatsoever. However, the next day, the group decided what they would do. They bombarded Carmen incessantly, convincing her that it was just an innocent adventure. Despite her initial hesitation, she eventually caved in and agreed to take them. The group got into Carmen's car, excited for the journey ahead. Meanwhile, Julio arrived at the beach only to find that, despite his warnings, Carmen had taken the tourists toward the Darien jungle. Realizing the danger they were heading into, panic set in. Without wasting a second, Julio jumped into his car and sped toward the forest, determined to stop them before it was too late. Carmen and the group finally arrived at the point where the dense forest began, beyond which the waterfall awaited them. As the car could go no further, they had no choice but to continue on foot. Meanwhile, Julio kept calling Carmen non-stop, desperately trying to warn her, but she ignored all his calls, dismissing them as unnecessary concern. Realizing she wouldn't pick up, Julio sends a voice message, insisting they leave the area immediately. But Carmen still wasn't paying attention, as she was too caught up in the excitement of the adventure, walking, laughing, and chatting with Trevor and the rest of the group, completely oblivious to the danger lurking in the jungle. After about half an hour of walking, they finally reached the waterfall. The view was breathtaking, and without a second thought, they all jumped into the water, laughing, taking photos, and enjoying the moment with enthusiasm. On the other side of the forest, Julio finally reached the area while tracking them. But before he could call out to them, he spotted something terrible, a dark figure moving between the trees. A shiver ran down his spine as fear took over. He immediately turned around, jumped into his car, and sped away, his heart pounding. Back at the waterfall, after having fun for a while, Trevor and Carmen decided to wander off to a quieter spot in the forest. While they were together, enjoying the moment, Carmen suddenly felt uncomfortable, as if someone was watching them. She whispered her concern to Trevor, who dismissed it as a hallucination, but agreed to check the area to calm her down. Trevor walked away, disappearing among the trees while looking around. But minutes passed, then more time, and he didn't return. Growing anxious, Carmen called for him, but there was no response. Feeling uncomfortable, she decided to look for him. Meanwhile, Scott and the others were getting dressed after their swim when a piercing scream interrupted the peaceful atmosphere. It was Carmen. Without hesitation, everyone ran toward the sound. At the same time, Trevor, wandering through the forest, also heard Carmen's screams and hurried back. On the way, he noticed something on the ground, Carmen's bracelet. His stomach churned as he picked it up and continued on. As soon as he reached the others, he held up the bracelet and explained, desperate, that Carmen had vanished. Alarmed, the group immediately began calling her name and searching the area. But despite their efforts, time passed and there was still no sign of her. Realizing that something was seriously wrong, Scott grabbed his phone to call the hotel for help, but there was no signal. Determined to find a way to ask for help, he decided to climb to a higher point, hoping to get reception. However, the jungle felt like a maze. No matter which way they went, they couldn't find an open area. It was as if the forest didn't want to let them go. As they continued walking, night fell, making the dense forest even more sinister. Just when they thought things couldn't get worse, they spotted movement in the bushes, the creature that Julio had warned them about. Its bright eyes fixed on them, and a wave of terror spread throughout the group. Panic set in, and without thinking, they all ran in different directions, blindly fleeing through the darkness. In the confusion, they became separated, their desperate screams for each other lost in the vast jungle. Trevor and Elena were catching their breath when a deafening scream echoed. It was Charlie being attacked. Without hesitation, they ran toward the sound, only to freeze in horror at what was before them. Charlie's lifeless body lay on the ground, bloodied, deep lacerations covering his skin, his eyes wide open and unblinking, staring into nothingness. Terror gripped them, and they ran as fast as they could back to Scott and Steph, panting. They told them what had happened, fear settling in as the brutal reality hit them. Julio's warnings were true. Something was in that jungle and was hunting them. Scott's fear quickly turned into anger, and he yelled at Trevor, who had insisted on coming to this cursed place. It was Trevor who kept pushing Carmen to take them deeper into the forest, and now Charlie was dead because of it. Frustration overflowed, and Scott shoved Trevor. "This is all your fault," he shouted. Trevor, equally shaken, retaliated. The two nearly came to blows, but Elena and Steph pulled them apart, telling them to focus on surviving instead of fighting. Realizing they needed to find help, the group pressed on, searching for a higher point. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached a spot where a weak signal flickered on their phones. Without wasting any time, Scott grabbed his phone and started recording. His voice trembled as he spoke. "We're trapped in a jungle in Panama. There's something here. Something is hunting us. Please send a rescue team. We don't have much time." He sent the video through the emergency app, ensuring it would reach all his contacts. Just as the message was sent, a deafening scream ripped through the silence. It was Trevor being attacked. Scott and the girls ran towards Trevor's scream, hearts racing. When they reached him, they found Trevor lying on the ground, injured and trying to move. As Scott approached to help him, a shadow loomed behind him. The terrifying creature emerged from the darkness, dragging Trevor into the forest. Overwhelmed by fear, Scott turned and ran, gasping for breath as he stumbled through the dense foliage. In his frantic flight, He accidentally arrived at a dark cave. His heart raced as he entered, desperate for a place to hide, only to freeze at the grotesque sight before him. The creature was inside, hunched over Charlie's mutilated body, devouring him. The sound of flesh being torn and bones being crushed filled the space. Scott felt nausea. His body trembled as he crept back as quietly as possible. He knew he had to leave before the creature noticed him. Cautiously making no noise, he exited the cave and returned to find Steph and Elena. Meanwhile, Julio had returned safely to town. Sitting in his car trying to calm down, his phone vibrated. When he checked, he saw the emergency video Scott had recorded. His eyes widened in horror as he watched Scott begging for help, confirming his worst fears. Without wasting a moment, Julio rushed to his uncle, a respected figure in the local community. He showed the video and explained everything that had happened. His uncle immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. The next morning, Scott's video had gone viral. News channels from the United States and Panama covered the story, and authorities quickly took action. The governments of both countries launched an urgent rescue mission, sending a military team with helicopters and ground forces to delve into the jungle. While the soldiers searched the vast jungle, Scott, Steph, and Elena remained hidden, exhausted and terrified. Then they heard a helicopter flying overhead. Relief flooded over them. They would finally be saved. Without hesitation, they ran toward a clearing, waving their arms to signal for help. But just as they did so, Steph stumbled, screaming in pain. She had severely injured her leg. Scott crouched beside her, quickly applying gauze to stop the bleeding. Scott told Elena to go ask the helicopter for help. Elena hesitated for a second, but then agreed and darted ahead. Meanwhile, Scott carefully lifted Steph onto his back and began to carry her towards safety. When Elena reached the military helicopter, relief flooded her face. She began calling for Scott and Steph, waving excitedly. A cameraman, part of the rescue team, was recording everything, capturing the dramatic moment of their survival. A reporter was also broadcasting the event live to the world, covering the harrowing rescue mission. Just when the soldiers were about to pull Elena into the helicopter, a terrifying shadow emerged from the jungle. The creature attacked with astonishing speed, grabbing Elena by the hair and pulling her back with superhuman strength. Her screams echoed through the air as the monstrous entity sank its fangs into her skull, devouring her head in seconds. The scene was horrific, and millions of people worldwide watched in shock until the live broadcast was abruptly cut off. The journalists were horrified before the channel silenced. Meanwhile, Scott struggled to carry Steph through the dense jungle, determined to reach safety. But just as they thought they couldn't go much further, the creature appeared again, lunging at them, sinking its claws into Steph and trying to drag her away. Desperation took hold of Scott, and he grabbed a thick branch from the ground. With all his strength, he swung it at the creature's face, hitting it hard. The beast let out a high-pitched, supernatural scream, releasing Steph. But now it turned all its fury towards Scott. The creature knocked him down, pinning him to the ground as it slashed at him with its sharp claws. Scott fought back, kicking and punching, but the creature was too strong. Just as it opened its mouth to devour him, a series of gunshots echoed. The army had arrived. The soldiers opened fire, bullets slicing through the air and hitting the creature. Scott and Steph survived. The soldiers rushed to them, lifting them into the helicopter and flying them to safety. Once in Panama, they were taken to a hospital where doctors treated their injuries. While they had escaped with their lives, the horror they witnessed would haunt them forever. In the final moments of the story, news anchors discussed the tragic disappearance of Scott's friends and the horrifying creature that was captured live on television. Scott and his girlfriend were saved, but now Scott was in shock, with a vacant stare as he watched the news about the tragedy. Everything that had occurred weighed heavily on him, and the final scene shows the photo they took when they arrived at the waterfall, filled with smiles and happiness. The image appears on the screen, and with that memory, the film ends.